Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, dear viewers, to another episode of Gates of Goodness, where every night during this blessed month of Ramadan, we'll be seeking new ways to enjoy and put good and increase in nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm your host, Youssef Kromah, and tonight we will be discussing something very, very significant, which is peer pressure. One of the hardest things to do in society is to be yourself, and oftentimes we find ourselves in pressure in a quagmire to sort of submit and acquiesce to social peers, social pressures, to conform to social norms. So today we'll be talking about what peer pressure is, how do we combat it, how do we exist outside of a realm where we have to compromise our truth and compromise our beliefs. But before we get too deeply into this conversation, I would like to introduce our noble guest. Firstly, to my right, we have our dear brother, Brother Kareem Adib. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, how are you, brother?
I'm really good, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Secondly, we would like to introduce a veteran on the show, Brother Idris Surat. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. Last but most certainly not least, we have Brother Amr Abdul Ali. I like to call him Amr Ibn As. All right? Alhamdulillah, Rabbil. How are you today?
Fine, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So we're going to jump right into the subject, Brother Kareem. What does peer pressure mean to you? How do we qualify this term?
I think peer pressure in general is when a group of people, usually peers, they pressure you into a certain direction. It can be either positive or negative. Usually the term is usually used in a negative context, pressuring you out of what you have established yourself in terms of values. It could be directly, peer pressure could be direct from friends or classmates in school or people in your work, or it can be more global in terms of the media and the exposure of the media. TV telling you what's right and wrong, or governments telling you what's right and wrong. Type of pressure to conform to a certain idea or to let go of some of the ideals and values that you've established. This is the general term. And obviously in what we're going to be talking about today is moving us away from pressuring us to move away from as-sirat al-mustaqim, the true path, or trying to support someone to get back on the path. So that's quick definition of peer pressure, very lax term, can be used in many different contexts. So
okay, now I want to ask Brother Idris and Amr the same question, but before asking you what's the definition of peer pressure, I want to just share a brief story. It was that was shared with me by one of my teachers, and he talked about a visit that he had to a zoo, where he went to the zoo, and there was an elephant in the zoo, and for maybe 10 years they used to chain the elephant and put the elephant on a rope, and the elephant could only go as far as they wanted it to go. They would put its food right there every day, and the elephant would try to reach, and it would stop right there. So after about 10 years or say of doing this to the elephant, they completely removed the chain, they removed its cage, everything, but the elephant would never go further than a rope would allow it to go when it was chained. So in the elephant's mind, it was chained, it couldn't go, it didn't have the ability to move any further. And he talked about in the zoo, there was also a lion. And in the lions, then, the trainer would come in the lion's den, he would play with the lion, he would, shake it up and laugh, slap the lion 5 and things like this. And people would be amazed, like, how is this thing that's supposed to be so ferocious, so great, so, grandiose, now is reduced to a mere, house cat. And there's another like a gorilla that was riding a bicycle and things like this. The zoo was completely out of sorts. And it said he was amazed to see these attractions, and it made him think the effect of peer pressure, the effect of social pressure, that it can conform you to make you think that you're something that you're not, to the degree that a great elephant would believe that it's confined to a locality, to a box. It can't go anywhere outside of the box. And that's sort of the same idea of peer pressure. A lion, something so ferocious that in its nature, Allah Ta'ala created it to be something so great that it will become a mere house cat because people taught it was something that it's not. Changes complete identity. You will see something as strong, as massive, as feared as the gorilla riding a bicycle like some sort of child play toy, because in its mind it doesn't know what it really is. So that's some of the effects that peer pressure can have. Now I want to change the question and ask about what are some of the effects that peer pressure can have on people or your own individual lives.
I think first I'll just wanted to answer feed off of what he said about the defining it, is that I think he defined it wonderfully. The only thing that I would add to it, outside of pressure from people and society, is that I would like to add also the pressure from the shaitan and shayateen, because when you think about the Quran, whenever he said that he would do what, if Allah gave him the chance, he would make them change the very nature in which he created them. And what is this but pressure? So he's not doing it physically. He's just going to use waswas and give you suggestions, and then he'll change that what you created for. And the scholars have talked about this in many different ways, but that's a different show we can go on and on for about. But as far as the effects on it, I've seen in my life, so I didn't really have a lot of social peer pressure growing up for me, because I lived more of I kept a close knit of people that were near me or close to me. I wasn't the guy who would like to have a large gathering and and have a lot of people, and I didn't grow up that way. This was wasn't my nature. So I had a small circle around me, and I wasn't easily swayed by people. It's kind of one of the reasons why I became Muslim. I didn't have like people, because before I was around non-Muslims, I didn't have them to guide me or tell me this was right or wrong. I did this on my own. It would through deduction and figuring things out and understanding and learning and knowledge. So I didn't have a lot of pressure myself, but I've seen other people being pressured in doing a lot of things. Other people pressured into thinking that a certain way whenever they don't really believe it. And they know it, but they just don't have the strength to fight against it. So they succumb to this pressure and just go along with the flow because it's easier for them.
Okay. So, Brother Amr?
Yeah, for me, I think based on my experience in the U.S., I've seen the society pressuring people and putting a lot of stress on them, especially for Muslims or the minorities in the United States. They try to blend in, they try to conform to the society, the social norms. They try to be, for example, completely American, and they don't want to be left out from anything, especially when you're a teenager. You don't want to be left out in your school. Your friends are partying all night, or you're going to this event or that event, and they're drinking, for example, and you don't want to go because you don't drink because you're a Muslim. And then after some time, if you don't have the istiqamah, or if you're not having a strong faith, you start feeling like this is from this point the shaitan comes in. It tells you, okay, it's fine to go. You don't have to be that strict. You'll be alone, no friends, because everyone is like this. And this is when you start appealing to this pressure. You start conforming to the wrongdoings of the society just because you want to blend in, or you don't want to be left out. And this is a huge source of danger to the Muslims in the non-Muslim societies, because it's very effective on them. And it's very difficult not to conform to these social norms.
Absolutely. And I was just telling a friend of mine, a few years ago, I received a scholarship to go to a university in America. It was an Ivy League school, and I just, won't mention his name just out of, but it was 6,000 people that applied for the scholarship. 60 people got the scholarship. And, my family was happy, everyone was elated. So they said, before, we bring you to the school, we want to get you introduced into the social setting of the school, the acquiesce you to the climate. And I'm like, this is great, my first time in college. So I went there for the summer, and I got there, and the first thing I saw was just it was a completely different world. Women were just walking around half naked. It was a very closed environment. It was only the college students there in that particular environment, and there was nothing else in the city. So this, everybody was congregating, in the fields. And the first thing I did was I looked around for Muslims, and I couldn't find any Muslims. I Googled a masjid. I couldn't find any masjid. I said, wait a minute, this is, difficult. So I said, okay, maybe I'm new here. I'll look around a little bit, see if I can find some Muslims, and then, we can establish a Muslim student organization or something like this. And, the more I looked, the more I couldn't find. And then, I was asking people. So I would see brothers in class, their name would be written on the paper, Muhammad, but everyone knows him as Mo. All right? His name is Yaqub, but everyone calls him Jacob. Or Nuh, but now he's Noah. All right? So I'm coming to class, and it's time to mix a lot. If Ramadan is there, I'm fasting, and I feel like I'm just the only one. And then Muslims are slowly coming around, and they're like, why are you acting like this? Why are you not drinking and, doing this? And even some Muslims from foreign countries are there, and they said, you're Muslim, for what? You're Muslim and you're here? What are you Muslim for? So, you know, during the period of the summer, I called my parents and I told them, I said, I can't be here. I have to come back home. I said, it's either I gain the education and I lose my Islam, or I preserve my Islam and I come back home. Because, you know, I can only be, you know, strong for a certain time without assimilating to this culture, because it's pervasive, it's all around me. There's only but so much time that I can fight it. So my father was like, you know, come home. You know, packed the car up, they came and got me, and that was it, khalas. So, you know, alhamdulillah, it turned out better for me. But I realized that, you know, I couldn't make it in that environment. And some people, they don't understand until it's too late, until you're too far gone, you know? So, subhanAllah, that was a peer pressure on my life that I had to make a great decision, leave an Ivy League education behind to come to a local college in my environment that was safer for me.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I think you identified several factors. One, the idea that you actually were self-aware, and you noticed that this isn't working, and this is one of the problems, like you said, that somebody can go through the 4 or 5 years and suddenly realize that they've changed.
Yeah.
They're no longer, they're Muslim by name, but they're no longer, they don't have the true essence of the deen is in their hearts. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ was talking about when your heart gets exposed to sins, that if you let one of the sins in, then there's a small black speck on your heart, and it keeps on accumulating until it becomes black.
Yeah.
And then when it becomes black, it does not distinguish between right and wrong.
Yeah.
And this is the catastrophe. And then at that time, you find when you tell them you need to improve, they say, we're the reformers. This is the verses of the Quran when they say, إذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون ألا إنهم هم المفسدون ولكن لا يعلمون. You tell them, why don't you improve? They say, no, we're the reformers. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, they're the ones the transgressors, they're the ones that do mischief, but they don't know. And this verse is about the munafiqeen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مُذَبْذَبِينَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ وَلَا إِلَى هَؤُلَاء وَلَا إِلَى هَؤُلَاء. They're swayed, they're neither on this side or on this side. They're not fully embedded within the culture, they're not Americans in terms of what they want, the culture, and they're not proper Muslims, they're somewhere in the middle. They're lost identity. Their heart sometimes wakes up and says, why are we doing this? And then falls asleep again, and then wakes up and they're lost. So this is this is why the social pressure and fitting in is a problem. This idea of you need to establish an identity and have a clear sirat, a clear vision of what Islam is. And you can't pick and choose, really. You need to follow the deen as it is. It's Ya Yahya khudh al-kitab biquwwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, oh Yahya, take the book with power, hold on to it. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضِ. Do you believe in some of the book and leave some of the book? You don't really get to pick and choose within Islam. You take the whole package as it is, and you follow it. And this is a problem with trying to fit in through social pressure. And this isn't new. This has been the prophets. They went through the same thing. Nuh alayhi salam. You can imagine, if you're talking about social pressure in Ivy League, Nuh alayhi salam is in the desert and he's building a big boat. So when the floods come in, I mean, it really doesn't make sense. Well, what boat, man? It's a desert. What are you doing? And he keeps on doing this for such a long time and building the boat and by himself and a couple of people helping him out. And the people, كُلَّمَا مَرَّ عَلَيْهِ مَلَأٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ سَخِرُوا مِنْهُ. Every time they pass by him, they make fun of him. They laugh at him. What are you doing? You're crazy. And this is all the prophets. They were called crazy, lunatics, magicians. You need to conform. And the Prophet ﷺ, the same thing. When they came in and they tempted him with lots of stuff, they told him, well, how about we put somewhere in the middle? We can worship your idols in the morning, and then you can worship ours at night. But Prophet ﷺ, that doesn't work. You can't have sometimes Muslim. It's a full-time Muslim. It's a lifetime job. And the same thing, they told him, well, we'll make you the king, and you let go of this. And the Sahaba, the companions, lots of them, the same thing. They were tempted through their money. They were tempted through their families, pressure from their parents. You can't do this. You need to follow this. You need to follow this lifestyle. But they chose. They broke free. They did true jihad. This is the true struggle of fighting this, and it's a big deal. It is hard. Social pressure. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he tells him, وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ. And have patience and hold steady fast to the people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they remember Him in the morning and in the evening. And this is the Prophet ﷺ. I mean, if somebody's not going to go astray, then it's the Prophet ﷺ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, hold on, have good company, then this is important. And Musa alayhi salam, same thing when he was ordered to go to Fir'aun, because it's a big deal. Fir'aun isn't some normal kafir. This is the biggest kafir of them all. He's the أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. He said, I am the Lord of the worlds. And so it's a big deal going to Fir'aun. So he said, وَاجْعَلْ لِي وَزِيرًا مِنْ أَهْلِي هَارُونَ أَخِي. Give me a minister from my family, Harun my brother, أُشْدُدْ بِهِ أَزْرِي. Make him support me in my cause. He knew that, and even though he's a Nabi, and he's a Nabi, Uli Azmi is one of the best prophets, one of the best 5 people to ever walk the earth, but he needs support. Sometimes you'll feel that this is going, I need someone to help me out, someone to... So this is what we need to be thinking about. We need to find the suhbah. الْمَرْءُ عَلَى دِينِ خَلِيلِ فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَلِّ. Prophet ﷺ says that the man or the person is on the religion of his friend. So each one of you should be very, very careful who he chooses as a company. You need to al-mu'min mir'atu akhi. The believer is the mirror of the other believer. So if you're looking in the mirror and you're finding somebody drinking and doing and all of this stuff, then expect that you're somewhere very similar. You're not any. And this is the problem. People sometimes they isolate their reality with, I'm going to help them out. I'm going to do da'wah in the bar. I mean, very rare that you're actually going to do da'wah. You're either going to be quiet most of the time or doing nothing, or you're going to be influenced by the surroundings, and then you're not going to do inkar until suddenly you become familiar with this. Okay, I'll just hang out there, and because I'm there and I'm going to get up for prayer, then they're going to like me and they're going to accept Islam. It's not going to happen. And the people of the cave, another example of people who moved, when they felt that the pressure was too much, they isolated themselves. They moved, the Fitya, Surah Al-Kahf, they moved and they isolated themselves. Whether we should be isolating ourselves, no, we shouldn't. But when it comes too much, like you did, when you did a form of isolation, you moved away from, you don't isolate yourself from the world, you just said, I'm not going to be in here, I can't stay here, I need to move away, I need to preserve my deen. You're still going to go to college, you're just, وَمَنْ تَرَكَ شَيْئًا لِلَّهِ عَوَضْهُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا مِنْهُ. If you leave, sacrifice something for Allah SWT, He will reward you much, much better. And this is something we need to have yaqeen in. This is true beliefs that Allah SWT will reward us much better, whether if it's in this dunya or the other.
So how do we, to transition in terms of parents, how do parents begin to confront this sort of the idea of social peers? And I believe the ayah that you mentioned, وَلَكِنْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ, from Surah Al-Baqarah. Yeah. But as parents, how the parents sort of combat the idea of social peers? I'm thinking of myself as a first generation American. My parents weren't born and raised in the American climate, so some of the nuances of the things I was experiencing, they didn't understand. I believe it may be perhaps in every culture. You could be born and raised even in Egyptian culture or something like this, and the experiences that your children are going through, you can't comprehend it because it was completely different from how you were growing up. So my parents were always like maybe a few steps behind things that were happening. They just relied on teaching me good akhlaq and good adab, and teaching me about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the reality of what I was experiencing in school, they couldn't really grasp it. And I think a serious difficulty is that when you're younger, you're still coming to an idea of who you are, and identity is a social construct. So you look to your peers to say, who am I? Tell me who am I, or who I'm not. You're still coming to a formation of who you are, particularly in school. So, if people are doing this thing, most likely you're going to go this way. If people are going this way, most likely you're going to go this way. And that will develop your character for the rest of your life, except for the extreme few who very young have, strong wills and a strong idea of who they are, and they're very, strong-minded. I remember in my neighborhood, one of the best schools was the Catholic school. So my parents put me in Catholic school. But I can remember in first grade being like, I'm not going to church, I'm Muslim. Strong will. Everyone else is going to church. No, I'm Muslim. I didn't even know what it meant to be Muslim in first grade, but I just knew I was Muslim and I wasn't worshiping Jesus. I knew it. And, the teachers put pressure on me. They, try to put me on medication. Told my mother something was wrong with me because I didn't want to go to the church. They ended up kicking me out of the school and out of the entire school district. And I never even heard this term before. They give me NTR, never to return, because I was influenced by other peers. And I was the only Muslim in the classroom, but, alhamdulillah, through the tarbiyah of my father. But oftentimes, these are the things that happen in school, but parents had no idea. My father just wanted me to have the best education there was. At the time, that was the Catholic school. there weren't any even Muslim schools back then in the Toes. So he had no idea what I was going through in school. So how as parents do do we deal with these things, inshallah?
I think parents have a very, very strong role in terms of where they stand, especially for the young kids. What you mentioned, I think, hits it pretty much, mashallah, and the idea of putting proper foundations. And then you're going to let them go, but you need to monitor them in a sort of sense where you need to follow up who are they hanging out with. This idea of giving them money, giving them a phone and telling them, oh, go ahead and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you, doesn't really make sense. This isn't the manhaj of anyone, ever. This is يعني عقلها وتوكل. The Prophet ﷺ, when he talks about the camel, he says, tie it up and then leave it. You don't leave it and say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect it. That doesn't make sense. It just doesn't work that way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He will make things work. But we have been ordered, part of tawakkul is that we take al-asbab, we take the proper measures to protect our kids. And that means identifying them with the Muslim identity, telling them what that means, explaining to it, and befriending them, especially kids when they're younger, maybe in teens. The problem is people leave the kids until they're about 14 years old, no relationship, and then suddenly when the problems arise, 14, 15, 16, all the later teens, you need to be my friend, you need to tell me what's going on. No, I'm not going to tell you anything.
Too late, brother.
Too late, man. Where were you 10, 15 years ago? You're nowhere. All you did was do this, study this, and that's it. And you were telling me at that time, you need to conform, you need to do this. And all you were asking about was the studying, the practices, sports, where are you, how are you doing, you're looking good. And then suddenly now, salah. What do you mean? Where was this about 5 years ago? So it needs to be established, it needs to be something which the whole household talks about, and sacrifices, and you need to prep them that they will meet these challenges. And you need to identify that, especially if you're in the West. The pressures are sudden, and the idea in the West of reinforcing the kids to the extent that if you want to leave the house, just leave. So you need to prep them well enough that no matter what happens, they're not going to be leaving the house, because you're not going to be forcing anyone to stay. If they want to leave, then the way it's structured, they just report you and they say, and you're done.
Interesting. So we have a report, and directly after the report, I'm going to get Brother Idris and Brother Amr involved in the conversation, inshallah. But we have a very brief report concerning the issue of peer pressure. So dear viewers, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In the days before the advent of Islam, Arabia had become a corrupt environment steeped in idolatry and injustice. There were still a few solitary individuals who adhered to the true faith established centuries ago in Arabia by Abraham and Ismail, peace be upon them both. These people eschewed worshipping idols and all that idolatry involved. One of these people was Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl. He would never offer sacrifices to idols or eat carrion and running blood. He said, I turned to him who Abraham appealed to for refuge facing the Kaaba, standing in prayer, saying, I am humble, resolute. Whatever must befall me, I'll endure. His words paint the picture of a Muslim who presses his will to the service of Allah, who is pleased with Allah's decree, hoping for good from his Lord and turning to him in refuge from what he fears. People like Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl were strangers among their people. They faced the severest form of estrangement in that time of ignorance, when believers in the truth were few. Muhammad, peace be upon him, had met Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl. This was well before Muhammad had started to receive revelation. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was served a meal and refused to eat from it. It was then presented to Zayd, who also refused to eat from it and said, I do not eat what you people slaughter over your idols. I only eat meat over which Allah's name has been invoked. Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl used to reprove Quraysh for their annual sacrifices, saying, "The sheep was created by Allah. Allah sent down the rains for it. He brought forth for it the vegetation from the earth. Then you go ahead and sacrifice it, invoking other than Allah's name?" These words of his both rebuke their actions and glorify Allah at the same time. When Zayd saw what they had to say about Abraham, peace be upon him, he left. When he went out, he raised his hands and said, "O Allah, I bear witness that I am on the religion of Abraham, peace be upon him." He used to save the lives of newborn girls destined to be buried alive. He would say to a man who wanted to kill his daughter, "Do not kill her. I will support her." He would then take her. After she grew up, he would say to her father, "If you wish, I will return her to you. Or if you wish, I will continue to support her on your behalf." Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl was not alone among the Arabs. There were a few others like him who worshipped Allah alone, followed the way of the messengers, and eschewed the ways of polytheism. Likewise, there were still some Jews and Christians who remained steadfast on their religion. When Allah sent Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as a messenger to the world, the Prophet's message came to aid the truth that those people adhered to, just as it came to the aid of the persecuted believers, those who followed the previous scriptures as well as others. It also came in support of all the previous messengers of Allah, peace be upon them. This is part of the meaning of Allah's statement, "We will without doubt help our messengers and those who believe both in the life of this world and on the day when the witnesses will stand forth." Surah Ghafir 51. Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl lived during the time before Islam, so he is not numbered in the history books among the Prophet Muhammad's companions. However, his son Sa'id ibn Zayd would become one of the most illustrious of the Prophet's companions. He was one of the 10 companions who were given the glad tidings of paradise while they were still alive.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this pertinent discussion on gates of goodness pertaining to social prayers, social pressure, social peers and social pressure, and this destructiveness in this corrosive society. We're going to pick up where we left off and have Brother Idris mention some things that parents could do to confront this issue.
Yeah, I won't make it very long, but I agree that you, as a parent, you need to set a foundation with your children about knowledge. But not only give them the knowledge, you need to teach them why. Don't just teach them to pray. Teach them why they pray. Teach them to appreciate it, so that way they understanding or have an understanding of why. This isn't guaranteed that they'll be okay, but it helps. And I think another thing they need to do is they need to have a twofold relationship with their child. One that establishes that they are the parent. You know, they don't be so much a friend to your child that they don't respect you. You know, they need to know that you're the parent and you're the authority. At the same time, you need to be open. You need to make them feel that they can come to you for anything, and that your solutions help them, and that your solutions to their problems make it even better. You know, make it, not to the way they feel like they feel like anything that happens, I can't tell to my parents. If your children feel like that, you're going to have problems. Because if they don't come to you for solutions, guess where they're going to go?
Somebody.
They're going to go to someone else. And that someone else may not have their best interests at heart. I mean, if you think about how the Rasulullah was with his Sahabas, he was stern. They knew that, he didn't compromise on the deen. But they still loved him. And they still went to him with their problems. And they came to him with big, problems that you would think, like, I'd be embarrassed to go ask somebody that. But they weren't embarrassed to ask Rasulullah. They weren't, some of the stories about, like, the young man, he basically asked to commit zina. I mean, who would do that? You go to your parents and ask your parents, look, I want to have commit zina. Is that okay? Whoa. Who would do that with their parent? You wouldn't feel comfortable. But with the Rasulullah, they felt comfortable. So you need to make your child feel comfortable with you, and have your reactions proportionate and that makes the child understand it, but at the same time know that they can't continue in a wrong way. So it's not easy. It's a balance you have to figure out as a parent and establish if you want to have a healthy relationship with your child.
Okay. Brother Amr?
Yeah, and just to add to Idris' point is it's very beneficial for parents to be the example of the person they want their children to be. So act upon what you're telling them to do. Like be the person, be the Muslim that you want them to be. That's because if you keep telling them do this and do this and do that, and they watch you and they see you not doing what you're ordering them to do, it's not going to be beneficial for them. They're not going to follow what you're saying. But you be what you want them to be. You yourself, as a parent, as a father or a mother, if you have your daughter and you ask her, like, do this and do that, wear the hijab, or your son go to the masjid and perform the prayers, you have to do this first. But if you're not doing it and you're just telling them to do it, you're just a source of authority. They're not going to follow you. So I think it's essential to be the example of the person you want them to be in the future. The Muslim they want you to be.
Alhamdulillah. Perfect answer, mashallah. Now we want to go back to the Sheikh. We want to work on solutions. How do we protect ourselves as Muslims from social pressures? We know that is pervasive. We know that is a very difficult thing to do. But what are some steps that we can take to eliminate, at least, or mitigate some of the issue, if not all of it?
I think several things, a couple of them were mentioned right now. First of all, we need to understand the deen. And implement it, both together. Like Brother Idris was saying right now, the idea of just doing them as rituals, you get ideas of people coming in and saying, Salah is like yoga, blah, 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 or prayer, or Siyam, you do this, it's like a diet. And then suddenly people drop out of Salah and they say, we're not going to, obviously, because they're doing yoga and they stopped. They want to do basketball. It's just sports. Because it's not yoga. I mean, this is submission. This is the highest submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it's the same postures as yoga, that's yoga's issue. That's got nothing to do with us at all. This is so we need to understand, why do we do this? Why do we have 5 prayers? Why can't we just group them together at the end of the day? We need to make it a lot spiritual, very spiritual. This idea of salah isn't just these movements. This idea, it is an actual talk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we start in the Hadith al-Qudsi, it's split. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the salah is split into 2 halves. Half is for the person that's praying, and half is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then it's a long dialogue which we can go into another time. But it's, you say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers, and Rahman Rahim, and you go through the steps. When the child starts to feel this and starts to feel the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he knows the Sahaba, and this is very important, whether it's girls or boys, the Sahaba and the Sahabiyat, the companions, both male and female, and what they did and how they sacrificed. This idea of isolation, lots of people that when you talk to them now, especially the youth, they isolate now from then. They say they didn't have problems then. They had the Prophet ﷺ, it was the utopic world, and
right.
But that's not true. They sacrificed literally with blood. These people had to die, and lots of people lost their arms. They had to fight their parents. It was the war. There wasn't just turn off the TV. This was, and they tell you what it was the model. No, it wasn't the model anything. And during the Meccan period, there were prostitutes. They had the houses with the red lights on. Well, they weren't lights, but they had red scarves put on them. That means that this was a brothel, and you go in there, and it was well known. They knew this. The people went around the Kaaba nude. So it wasn't like the utopic place where everyone, the Meccan period, pre-Islam obviously. But I mean, they had challenges. They had lots and lots of challenges. They had social pressure, and you can see this in lots of things. Abu Talib, the Prophet's uncle, when he was dying on his deathbed, the Prophet ﷺ told him, say La ilaha illallah kalimatan ahaj laka biha inda rabbik. Tell me, just say La ilaha illallah so I can have something to get you into Jannah. And he said, what will my people say? I can't. I cannot let down my people.
SubhanAllah.
And he went into, he lost Jannah because he couldn't, the social pressure. What will my people say? And this is in lots of things, the ayah, يَا لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أَتَّخِذْ فُلَانًا خَلِيلًا. Oh, I wish I did not choose him as a friend. يَا لَيْتَنِي أَخَذْتُ مَعَ رَسُولِي سَبِيلًا. I wish I had followed the Prophet ﷺ. This was one of the people in Quraysh. He went and he heard the Prophet ﷺ, and then he came back and he said, this is beautiful, the Quran, we love it. It's very nice. And then his friends told him, if you do that, if you go and listen again, we will not talk to you again. And he chose his friends. And then the verses came down and talk about this person. So first thing we need to do is to understand what the religion is, start to implement it in our lives, start to choose friends which help us, support us in this cause, start to avoid places which move us away.
Okay.
These places could be, like you gave up, it could be something which, in terms of worldly attainment, is beautiful. Ivy League school, excellent, best education in the world. But this isn't what I'm here for. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. The only purpose you've been brought here to this earth is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this might need yes, sacrificing some things, sacrificing the good job, sacrificing this person. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about this. He talks that there's a fitna, there's temptation, you can go straight through your wives and your children, and through your money, in another verse. So this idea of that we can, this is another type of peer pressure, which could be not just friends, it could be the money, and I need the money, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to take riba, I'm going to do this, and I want to get my kids the best education, so I'm going to steal, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to sacrifice their deen so that they get the best education. My wife or husband, they have these demands, my husband doesn't want me to wear hijab, or my wife has so many things I need to, so I'm just going to work overtime, I'm going to lose my salah, I'm going to lose all of this, so that I can give her the best. These are things which pressure you into this. This is lots of pressures. So I think we need to step back a while and see where are we going, how long are we going to live, and start to establish things like al-ibadat. The main ibadat, salah has to be there. Inna salah tanha an al-fahsha'i wal-munkar. Salah will keep you away from all of the evil doings once you establish it properly. If you're at the temptations in terms of sexual temptations, then siyam, the Prophet ﷺ said, من استطاع منكم الباءة فليتزوج ومن لم يستطع فعليه بالصيام. If whoever has the ability to get married, then they should get married. If you cannot, then they should do more siyam.
This is a very good point too to talk about, to isolate and talk about, which is the fasting itself, since we're in the month of Ramadan, and how that can work against peer pressure. There was one of the sheikhs in America, the student asked him, why do we fast? Right? And everybody was expecting this very profound answer, like, something all the way from maybe some books or something like that. And we were just sitting there and he said, to be hungry. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you, okay, Sheikh, come on, we want something big. We want something, that we can really sink our teeth into and think about and, ponder about. He said, to be hungry. So he said, well, could you explain that? And he said, well, 3 of the main human drives, the greatest drives that the human has, is the drive to eat, the drive to drink, and the drive to procreate. So he said, during the month of Ramadan, you abstain from all of those 3 things willingly, right? Of course, Allah Ta'ala commands us to do, but it's in our will that we refrain from those things. And it's natural for us to do. It's something that Allah Ta'ala put inside of us to do, naturally. So he said, if you can stay away from those 3 things, your own will, your own idea, your own, all the pressures that you have internally, then there's nothing else that you can't stay away from. So naturally, if you find yourself during the month of Ramadan, if you stayed away from drinking, and it's hot for me in Egypt, right? My first is right. I'm walking through and I'm not having any water. And before the Ramadan came, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But I put my faith in Allah and said, I'm not going to drink any water. I'm hungry, I'm not going to eat. You talked about how difficult fasting is for you. Right? Now it's something that's natural to us. But it's unnatural in reality to not drink and to not eat for that distance of time. And to stay away from procreation, from not being intimate with your spouse. Something that Allah Ta'ala put inside of you, you're here to procreate. But you restrain from it, and it's halal for you. Right? But it turns that Allah Ta'ala made it haram for us in this period of time. So if you can refrain from those things, in this month, at this time, what is peer pressure? What can somebody pressure you into doing? If you can fight against the deepest desires that the human being has. So the point of Ramadan is to be hungry, is to keep the nafs in check. It's to say, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, but I'm not going to do that. SubhanAllah, it can, work in any environment. Inshallah, I want to, ask Brother Idris to offer perhaps a comment about how can we preserve our, our sort of identities, ourselves, our values.
I think, coming from the West, one of the biggest things you can do is keep good company. And he mentioned it, he slightly mentioned it in a not direct way, but he mentioned it because it's important that, we're social beings. I mean, we're not going to sit here and tell you to be a monk and sit in the corner and not. This would make most people depressed and drive them insane. It's not normal for most people. Some people, they don't mind being in solitude by themselves. But the normal person is a social person. So you need to find those people that remind you of good. And they're there. It's up to you to find it. Some people say, well, I already have my friends. And I tell them that, look, if you can't be the driving force to your friends, you can't be the influence to your friends, because of whatever reason you don't feel strong enough, or you feel embarrassed, or you feel they're not listening, then you need to leave those friends. I don't want to hear the fact that you will choose your friends over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's basically what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you can't find that you're the one influencing and bringing into good, then you need to find people that will influence you and have a mutual interest. And I mean, just about anywhere you're going to find good Muslims somewhere, except for maybe isolated spots in America. It's very hard to find Muslims. But
what, in America?
Yeah,
some parts. Idris, give us a break.
There
are many good Muslims in America.
No, I said there's isolated spots where there's no Muslims.
Oh,
so what I mean is that you'll be able to not good. I said no Muslims.
Oh, okay.
So it's hard. It's hard to find in some places. There's hardly any Muslims. But most places you'll find good Muslims. You just have to do your job of looking for it.
Yeah, this is true.
So I would say, for most people, don't be the loner. Don't be that sheep that's left the flock. There's a hadith that talks about this, the meaning of don't be the one alone. Because when you're alone, the wolf's going to get you. The shaitan is very cunning and very tricky. You don't think that, you know what, I'm strong, I'm a big man, I'm Omar ibn Khattab. Don't think like that. Because the shaitan is very cunning.
Yeah.
So you have to do the things that require you to safeguard yourself.
Barakallahu feek. Brother Amr?
Yeah, I would like just to add to this point of having good companions, do everything you're going to do for the sake of Allah. Because if you're putting Allah in front of your sight, everything you will do will be fruitful, and Allah will help you or guide you to what's good for you. So if you're seeking good friendship, for the sake of Allah, Allah will guide you to the good friends, the good companions that will help you to be on the straight path. But if you're doing it for yourself, for the society, for your parents, okay, there is a chance, a big chance, half and half chance to be tricked by the shaitan. But if you're doing it for Allah's sake, of course Allah is not going to make you lost.
And I just wanted to add one other thing, is that when he mentioned how some people think like during the Prophet ﷺ's time, it was a utopia like in Medina. There wasn't even utopia in Medina. Mecca was rough. Medina wasn't a utopia either. They had lots of wars. They had the Munafiqeen. They had lots of enemies that were there, and many, many, many problems going on. It wasn't like it was like, I don't know where people get this idea that, during the Rasulullah's life there was a periods of utopia. It wasn't like that.
No, we know there was alcoholism amongst the Sahaba as well.
They had many problems in Medina, just not the same problems they had in Mecca. Different problems. It wasn't like, if I was there, everything would be mashallah. It wasn't like that. Probably some people, if they went back there, they would be part of the munafiqeen. A'udhu billah. I always tell people, don't wish that you can go back there, because you don't know how you would act. It wasn't easy for them. That's why they were the best generation, because it wasn't easy and they passed. So.
SubhanAllah. We have about 5 minutes left, inshallah. I want to talk about something that contributes a lot to people that sort of acquiesce to peer pressure, and that is like a poor self-image. If someone has like, I can't think of the word right now, someone has a bad opinion of themselves, they feel bad about themselves, certain self-esteem, exactly, low self-esteem. So if someone has a low self-esteem, sometimes they find it easier to sort of acquiesce to the social pressures. So how do we begin to like sort of increase someone's self-esteem to make them feel good about themselves, to sort of validate them, I like to call it. This is something I like to do with my friends. If somebody's feeling down about themselves, they're always beating themselves up, saying, oh, I can't do this because I'm that. I always try to pick them up and validate each other, and I think as Muslims, we don't do that enough. When someone does something haram or bad, we completely go to it and we reprimand them. But when people do things good, we oftentimes don't praise their goodness, right? So how do we sort of help people build up their self-esteem so they can feel strong enough to say, no, I'm fine with being me, I'm not going to tell myself no to tell you yes, right? So how do we begin to do this?
I think this is one of the biggest problems now, because most of the media coming in talks about how you look. It's basically how you look in terms of fitting in, wearing the best stuff. If it's for women especially, your hair looks like this, your makeup does that, you need to conform in this way. What we need to do is to start to move this idea of self-worth and beauty to things which are inside. and to put clear indicators for on what it means to be truly beautiful, what it means to be and not just in terms of looking good, in terms of what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at our hearts. And this is something that we need to establish. You can have people who, in terms of if they come in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, when the man comes in, very poor, his shabby stuff, he looks, and if he asks people, they will never give him anything. But when he raises his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will always answer his dua. It's got nothing to do with what you look like in terms of the outside. And this is obvious in terms of color. Bilal and Suhaib al-Rumi, Salman al-Farsi, this idea of what you are, where you come from, what you look like, this is nothing for us. It's what you are inside, and this is something that needs to be established. And the second point is what you brought up, we need to send glad tidings. We need to be mubashirin. And this is what the manhaj of the Prophet ﷺ, when he wants to improve something, he would go, when he did with Abdullah ibn Umar, he said, نِعْمَ الرَّجُلُ عَبْدُ اللَّهِ لَوْ كَانَ يُقِيمُ مِنَ اللَّيْلِ. He wanted him to do more qiyam at night, so he said, he's a really, really good true believer, if only he just added on some qiyam to his daily rituals. Abdullah ibn Umar says, after I heard that, I did not leave qiyam the rest of my life.
SubhanAllah.
What we would say is like, you think you're really cool, but why aren't you doing qiyam? If you were a true Muslim, you would have done qiyam. And if you're a true believer, well, you're munafiq. And you do that, because and this is the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He's a big sahabi. He's Abdullah ibn Umar, he's the son of Umar al-Khattab. So you think because your dad's a big shot, so you're just going to rely on him. And he didn't do anything. And he didn't even talk to him. He was talking to those people. نعم الرجل عبد الله لو كان يقيم من الليل. He's talking to those people and he's praising him in a company. And this is one of the things we don't do with our kids as well. Is our kids are sitting down, stop this, don't do this. But we never talk about this, or we can even more than that. Third-party recognition, which is very, very strong. I'm going to a friend, so I tell them, please tell them that my son's going to come. He had this project. Ask him about this, and then you praise him. Or he started to pray, and so ask him how your prayers go. There's no lying in this. He's going to really ask him how your prayers going, and then the kid will say, yeah, I've been 2 days straight doing all 5 prayers, and then he says, oh, mashallah, this is really, and then he finds more recognition from different people, and we get this support system. This is the idea of proper suhbah with, and I think this is stuff that once the kids find that they're getting their recognition for things which they do in their deen, they feel that their self-worth is through that. And instead of coming in, oh, look at the beautiful dress, look at how and this is what we usually do. People come in and you see the kids, so nice, so cute, your kids are lovely, very well dressed, stuff like this. And the kids feel that in order to make my parents look good, I need to dress up well. As opposed to the salah is proper, so he says, mashallah, and he talks in front of the kids, he says, mashallah, you must be really proud of your son. His prayers look excellent. How much do you memorize from the Quran? MashaAllah. And we emphasize this on that. I'm going to get good status from this. I'm going to get all the perks of being a good Muslim. And then it becomes established inside their lives that this is what the whole life is about.
SubhanAllah. We've reached that time again. Time is up. Wallahi, the closing remarks were extremely profound for me. I think we need to have an episode just on validation and sort of, bringing, identifying people's self-worth by tying it with ibadah and things like this. Inshallah ta'ala, perhaps, we can talk about the subject before, the Ramadan is up, inshallah, because this is very pertinent. It blew my mind when I thought about my own life, when I heard my father and my mother speaking about me and good, and I was somewhere in the back pretending not to be listening, right? But I'm eavesdropping. Said, oh, my son, he got, he finished Juz Amma, something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I did. I did, mashallah. But alhamdulillah, it's been a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I hope we can further this discussion, inshallah ta'ala. But dear viewers, thank you for joining us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us all in goodness and allow us to enter the gates of goodness, which we believe is Jannah, inshallah ta'ala. I am your host, Youssef Kromah. And until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.